Yo, what's up, Kipsters? This is Mr. Dudley here again with you today. I am going to be going over your Tuesday reading lesson, which was the first time that we read Starry Messenger together. I'm going to go through the lesson with you just like I always do. Please follow along and compare my answers to your answers. And if you got the same answers as me, that's even better. Let's get it started. I've already wrote my name. I've already selected my teacher to save some time. And now I'm going to move right into the lesson. I'm not going to watch the video of myself. That'd be kind of silly, right? You should have watched the video of me, of course, talking to you about the journal prompt, which was, when have you had stars in your eyes? And if you remember, having stars in your eyes means that you had very big dreams. So, when have I had stars in my eyes? When I saw all of the different people who went to college and graduated. I thought that that was a time in my life when I had stars in my eyes because I seen myself going to college and graduating, and that was one of my goals that I had to set, and I achieved that goal. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide, which was the first actual slide of the lesson, which was vocabulary. So we put this in here for you to review before you read the book so you could get a kind of background knowledge or understand what these two words meant or these two terms meant before the lesson. So it says, here are two important concepts to know as we read our text today. Galileo lived in a place that followed, the Ptolemaic system. This means that they believed the earth stood still. So in the Ptolemaic system, this was the system described by Ptolemy that showed that all heavenly bodies revolve around the earth, which stands still at the center of the universe. So it was once thought that the earth was the center of the universe, and then all the other planets around the earth and the sun and all that revolved around the earth. That's the Ptolemaic system. But in the Copernican system, this was the system that was first described by Copernicus that showed that earth and other planets moved and revolved around the sun. Now, Galileo was one of the people who questioned the Ptolemaic system, but as we know, the Copernican system, where the sun is the center of the universe and all the other planets revolve around the sun, that's actually the accurate representation, right? So that's what we believe today. But I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions with you and see if yours were the same as mine. I'm not going to watch the video of myself reading. I'm going to go right into answering the questions. Number one, how is what people used to think about the earth and sun different from what we now know about the earth and sun? That's a tricky question, and if you did not pay attention to the way it was worded, you may have got tricked. What we want to know is, what did people used to believe? That's what the question is asking. What did people used to believe about the sun that we know is not true now? So, did people used to believe that A, the earth was the center of the universe and everything, including the sun and planets, revolved around the earth? Or B, that the sun was the center of the universe and everything, including the planets, revolved around the sun? Well, if you remember from my reading the text, I told you that the first system that people believed in was the Ptolemaic system. And the Ptolemaic system tells us that the earth is the center of the universe, But we know that's not true today, right? We know the sun is the center of the universe. So what they used to think, how is that different from what we think now? Well, we think that we know, that the sun is the center of the universe and not the earth, but people back then thought the earth was, and so A is our correct answer because that is what people used to believe before the Copernican system. So, who is the one man being described on page 4? I had a couple people message me about this question, and I know it's tricky because this person has not really been mentioned quite yet in the text. However, if you listen to my reading and to my talking about the Copernican system, you would know that the person who questioned the Ptolemaic system caused the creation of the Copernican system, which means that that is being Galileo. Galileo is who's being described on page 4. He was the person that questioned the Ptolemaic system at the time. So, although his name wasn't mentioned yet, you have to do some foreshadowing and kind of inferencing, if you will, of who they are talking about in the text. They're not talking about Copernicus. It doesn't even necessarily say his name in the text except up in a little caption. So we're not talking about him. It's mentioned Shakespeare one time and Archimedes one time, but Galileo is who the whole book is about. So that was a kind of tricky question. But if you would have made an inference, you would know that it was talking about Galileo and not Copernicus. Another tricky question. So this is just an exemplar gist from Ms. Daniels that she had created, meaning from pages 1 to 6, these are the most important ideas. And that is that many people in Italy believed that the earth was the center of the universe because they didn't want to challenge the tradition. So people thought the earth was the center of the universe because that's what it said in the Bible, and people did not want to question that because that's what everyone thought at the time. The person who did question it, that though, was described on page 4, and that was Galileo, if you remember. So it says here, how was Galileo different from the other children? In order to answer this question, I would have had to listen to pages 7 through 13 and go back if I needed to. How was he different from other children? He was not interested in the stars or universe. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Honestly, guys, that's a terrible answer, right? Of course, he loved the stars. He loved the universe. It talks about that throughout almost the entire book. So that is not a good answer. That is the opposite of Galileo, right? The second one, he believed that the sun was the only thing in the universe. It doesn't say that in the text. You could have tried to make that inference, but you would have been guessing because it doesn't say that anywhere in the text, and there's really no evidence in the text that would support that inference, right? And an inference has to come from my schema, what I already know, and what's in the text. And since there's nothing in the text, then I can't assume that he thought the sun was the only thing in the universe. Plus, that would be kind of silly anyway, right? Because he lives on planet Earth. So that's not a good answer either. The next one, he was bored and did not like school. You could have again made an inference that he was bored because he was super intelligent and all these things. He may have been bored, but it does not say that he did not like school. In fact, he went to school and studied 4 different subjects while he was in monastery school. So he was studying religion, philosophy, science, and math at the same time. There's no way that he didn't like school, or he wouldn't have went to college to study all those different things. The only answer after eliminating the others is D. He was curious and always thought about the stars, and it tells us that in the text word for word. We know that that is the correct answer because it's supported by the text, and that's really the best answer. The other answers just aren't even good answers, right? So let's go to the next question. On pages 10 to 12, we learn that Galileo was an argumentative student and questioned teachings. What other evidence in the text supports this? So, this question's worded a little tricky. How you should have approached it is, I know that he's an argumentative student. I know that he questioned the teachings of other scholars. What tells me that he did that? That's the answer that I'm looking for. When he looks through the telescope, that doesn't tell me that he was argumentative, and that doesn't tell me that he questioned anything because he's looking through a telescope. That doesn't tell me that, so that's not a good answer. On page 10, when he studied math and other subjects, is also not a good answer because that doesn't tell me why he questioned other people's works, right? So the only answer here again is the last one on page 4, when Galileo wondered if things were not as everyone believes them to be. If I'm wondering something, I'm questioning, right? And argumentative means I like to argue. So being that he said, no way the earth is the center of the universe, right? And that's what everyone thought before that. That's making him argumentative. Him questioning teachings means that he questioned whether or not what everyone was saying was true or not. So when he wondered as if things were not as everyone believed them to be, that is him questioning the teachings of other people. So the only answer that makes sense here is C, or the third choice. Again, we have an exemplar gist here from Miss Daniels. The most important idea from pages 7 to 13 is that Galileo was a curious boy born and raised in Italy. Everyone believed he was special and took a special interest in an instrument that could help him look at the stars. So that is the most important pieces from pages 7 to 13 from the text. Now, what genre of the text is Starry Messenger? I won't go too much into detail explaining that because I already did in your wrap-up video in the lesson at the end. So we should have paid attention to that video at the end and known that this is an informational biographical text because it is written about someone's life by someone else, but it gives us information about people and the universe. So how do I know that the Starry Messenger is the genre that I chose above? Because the Starry Messenger is written about Galileo by someone else, and it gives us information. So literally what you heard me say out loud for my reasoning for that answer is exactly what I wrote for how I know that that is the genre. So let's go to the next question. Look at the visuals on page 1 and 3, and what do you notice about the difference in these images? Well, in image number 1, I see that Earth is the center of the universe, and in image number 2, I see that the sun is the center of the universe. That's the most obvious difference to me, right? So in the first image, the Earth is the center of the universe. In the second picture, the sun is the center of the universe. So that is the differences that I see. Hopefully those are the differences that you saw. You could have also wrote that in the first picture, the planets revolve around the Earth, but in the second picture, Earth and the other planets revolve around the sun. That would also be a good answer. There are many ways you could have worded this question, this answer. That is the way I personally would have worded it. But if you're along those lines, then you are correct. Now, I'm not going to watch through the key ideas video. Every time you have a key ideas video, it is super important that you watch it because it's going to tell you all the most important things from what we read about today. I'm going to skip through that though. And then for this lesson in particular, I made a wrap-up video to go over the genre and to go over the two systems that were described in the text. So please make sure that you're watching those videos, guys. They're to help you get through the lesson and understand it completely so that when you move on to 4th grade next year, you're super ready to dive in to these kind of texts and be able to be successful. That's all we want for you. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I love you. I miss you. Peace.